Where'd they go?
And we're hot. Good evening, folks. We get the share around music going, and we will be on it like a duck on a June bug here momentarily. All right, reading the body language. Looks like you're ready to go, Kenny.
Yep.
All right.
Sorry if there's an echo in here. I'm at the hotel and it's...
Yeah, you're good, man. We'll roll intro. You're good. And we're hot. Welcome, guys. Thank you for following, and thank you for tuning in the loyal fashion that our followers do. So before we dive in, hi, Emily. We'll call this episode inspired by, you know how they usually say inspired by actual events or something, for, inspired by a true story or something. We're going to say that this episode is inspired by Chuck Darby, because Chuck actually said several weeks ago, "Hey man, you need to talk about when you're the right team and how to decide if you're the right team for the track." So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But before we do, let's again preview as usual the forthcoming events and in the goings on. So we are on the heels of, at the doorstep of the Michigan event. It is shaping up to be really good. In fact, you're at a hotel where in Kentucky, Kenny?
Yes.
Made it all the way to Kentucky today, on your way to Michigan, making a little family trip out of it. So that's good. I've been on multiple phone calls and text and message exchanges regarding the event. And I'm here to tell you guys, now we know that these events are always good. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not trying to turn this into a competition, because it's not. But I will tell you that the things, Kenny, that we have been talking about, and the content and idea sharing that we've had over the last week has got me so stoked I can't see straight. I'm really excited about the content, the way the content's going to be presented, the attendees. There is a certain amount of excitement from a lot of the Michigan friends that I've been chatting with, and some of which are tuned in here now. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man. Regardless of what the weather does, I think the weather is actually shaping up to be okay. But I'm going to tell you, it's not going to matter because
we got Plan B in place. We got a plan for inclement weather.
Yeah, absolutely. Friday is supposed to be good. We'll still get the very limited testing in that we're talking about doing, and we'll get that done. But I'm going to tease this, but it's not a lockdown. We are on the razor's edge of securing a special guest. And Kenny Mullins, you don't even know who this guest is. I'm not going to tell you until later. But if it happens, it's going to be really cool. And I told you when I first teased this with you, Kenny, that he wouldn't have a speaking role. Well, that changed today. We're going to give this guy 30 minutes because it will tie in to, it's incredibly relevant, it's incredibly current, and it will tie into a previous stream that we did. So fingers crossed this comes together. And I was told it's 75% there, and they'll have the other lockdown very quickly. He fully suspects. So surprise guest, and I'm pretty stoked about it. So I know our schedule is established, but we will find 30 minutes for this guest. Oh, yeah. It will not be a problem. And you will want it too. So it's gonna be fun. So anyway, and then we have a little bit of a from an ABTA perspective, we're taking a breath until September from events, and then September, like I always forget, 12, 13, 13, 14, that weekend is the Iowa event, and that's a testing event as well out there. So stuff coming up, and then the judges were a little bit active this past weekend. There were at least four private tests administered last weekend. I think Emily did 2. I did 2.
Joe Tenney.
Oh, Joe. Oh, yeah. There was a lot more for her. I forgot about. Yeah, Joe did 3. Joe did 3. Yeah, so 7 private tests this weekend. So it's fun stuff, man. It's been pretty unpleasant from a weather perspective here in Michigan, which is just a Tuesday for you, Kenny. But for us, it's been pretty nasty. But it's supposed to cool back down. It's supposed to be, I think, in the mid 80s for the weekend. So, but it's been in the mid 90s with a heat index of into the hundreds. But again, nothing for you guys. But Michigan people or people attending the Michigan event, we're good there. Yeah, I'm also excited, man. There's a lot of states represented. I got a call from somebody from Wisconsin. Said, hey, I don't know if you know the name. I don't want to drop the name here, but he's been on some podcasts, and I really enjoyed it. I listened to one of those podcasts 3 times. I liked it so well, just the way he spoke. And he called me and said, hey, my schedule changed, and I'm going to come to the event, and I wanted to tell you to bring a cooler. I'm bringing you some Wisconsin cheese.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. So Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, Florida, maybe not Tennessee. Tennessee, yes, Tennessee, Arkansas. These are all states represented. Michael, I guess, is unable to join, so I'm not sure if we'll have Pennsylvania represented or not. But nonetheless, man, I'm pretty excited about it. Registrations are up. And I need to quit monopolizing the conversation to talk only about the Michigan event. But some of that is a perk of being a host of the show. So, but I'm really excited about it. If it's half as good as I'm building it up in my head, it's going to be a fantastic event, and I really believe it's going to be. So, anything on your mind, Kenny, before we dive into the topic at hand?
Nope, I'm ready.
You ready? All right. So I said Chuck Darby brought this up. Said, sent me a message and said, hey, you guys should think about doing an episode on determining whether you're the right team for the track or not. And I immediately started reflecting on some of the tracks that I did not take recently last season because I knew I wasn't right for the situation as it was described. So I immediately thought, well, that's actually a pretty good topic to discuss. Now, it's probably not a 2-hour conversation, and it doesn't have to be, but I think there's some things that we can talk about. I floated it by you, and you thought, man, that is actually a good topic. So I'll let me start. Can I open with my story, Kenny? Then turn it over to you for all of the things to consider.
Sure, go ahead.
So my story, the very first, and I have a couple of them from last season, and I referred to the same tracker. But the story that first came to mind when Chuck brought that up was it was probably 2 miles from my house. The guy called me and explained what he had. It sounded very much like a probable leg hit, front leg. And I'm like, you know what, man? I'm not right for this because this is going to have to be run down. I'm not a rundown team, but I know a guy. Let me give you Critter's number. So I gave him Critter's number. He called him. Sure enough, Critter was able to come out with his 2 Lacey's. And exactly as I suspected, they, within 150 yards, they found the deer, jumped him. And those dogs do what those dogs do. They run him down. Then he, and I forget the guy's name. He called me, says, Matt, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I go, well, tell me about it, man. He says, yeah, they jumped him and he got in a creek and he started swimming up the creek and one dog was in the water swimming behind him. The other one was on the bank and I was able to finish, dispatch him and we got the deer. And he was all excited. And I'm like, I knew it. Yeah, I would never have done that. I don't believe with my bloodhound. That's just not the type of team we are. Could it happen sometime? Maybe, but I knew the best opportunity for a successful recovery was to refer him to somebody else, even though the guy was 2 miles from my house. So, and I couldn't have been happier for that guy that they got the deer, and he was thrilled to death, So that's my story. I knew I wasn't right for the team, or I knew I wasn't the right team for the job, or I knew there was a better option. If Critter wasn't available, I'd have tried to help him. If I couldn't find somebody else relatively local better suited for that, and there's really not, I would have tried to help him.
Right.
I knew there was a better option relatively close, and it worked out. So that's my story,
Yep.
and that happened twice this year. The other one I didn't get the deer, but they ran it all over hell. And it was the same team that I referred him to because I thought it was a very similar situation. So
that goes right into what I was going to open with. Just because your phone rings doesn't mean you're the one who should answer it.
Yeah. Roll with it.
The best teams aren't the ones who take every call. They're the ones who know their limits, read the signs, and act for the recovery, not their ego. And, we talked about this last year in PA, the whole ego aspect. And typically it's newer trackers trying to make a name where they think that they have to take every call to build up clientele.
And when you say, let me qualify, when you say take a call, you mean actually run that track.
Actually run the track.
Take the call by answering the phone.
Right.
In the conversation. But yeah, take the call, I mean take the track. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it goes back to why are you doing this? Why are you tracking? The whole act of tracking wounded game is conservation and working your dog.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a glory run. And so much just today, yesterday, I've seen multiple posts about recovery numbers. Numbers number of tracks taken, recoveries, all about numbers. Numbers shouldn't matter. Recovery should matter. And it shouldn't be the number of recoveries. It should just be the recovery.
And regardless of who's ticking up that recovery mark, the fact that we as a tracking community, and I have a whole thought on the word community that I will riff on at some point. And I mean, just flat out, just mind dump. But it's not about you specific.
The thing is, you're not soft for saying no, and that's what people need to understand. You're smart. You're not soft. You're smart. You're seasoned, because typically it's by season. I'm not saying a certain number of years. You've been seasoned in the game long enough to make those right decisions.
Yeah.
So I've done it myself. I've referred teams that were, I'll just kind of share a story. I referred a team multiple times that it was their first year, and I referred them because I was fatigued and my dog was fatigued.
Oh, absolutely.
I knew I wasn't the right team at the time, and I'll share a little more on that later. I kind of jotted down here a 6-point self-check. Is my team likely to succeed on the track? We'll start with number one: shot type and scent expectations, gut, liver, muscle, one lung, intestinal. Does your dog have reps on the scenario, or is it wishful thinking? That's the question you need to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Which you did on that. You knew, hey, this is likely a leg shot, and I don't have the right dog for the job. But you could have taken it and said, hey, maybe we'll catch up to it. That'd be wishful thinking, and that's what you don't need to do.
Right.
Sometimes being the last option is the better mindset.
Yeah.
Number two, I have dog condition. Is your dog fresh or fried? Which I talked about that. Mental fatigue equals poor problem solving.
Yep.
Handler condition. Are you sharp or foggy and fried from 11 tracks in 2 or 3 days? And we've talked about this before. You don't make proper decisions. And true leadership is knowing when your own mental game is slipping. And I called Ralph in when was it, 2 years ago? I pretty much knew that the outcome, but at the same time I knew that I wasn't making the right decisions because I was just exhausted, and he drove 2 hours and backed me up.
Yeah.
Same thing with Mike Alguire. I called him and I said, look, man, I feel like this deer is alive. I said, but it's late. I'm exhausted. The dogs are exhausted. The hunter's doubting it. And I just went back up, and, Mike came and we ended up pushing that that deer off the property, across the road. And we told the guy to circle right back. It was intestinal, but, and
mm-hmm.
even I knew, Mike even knew, he's like, if your dog's going to get it, I'm not going to get it. But, if you tell them you're exhausted, you want a second opinion, the hunter wants a second opinion, I'm coming.
Yeah.
The other side of this is track complexity.
Yep.
Some teams are not set out for urban settings, roads, fences, livestock. There are some dogs that have issues with livestock. You know,
Sure. Oh yeah.
you know, there's teams that struggle with grid searches. You know, a heavily grid search track is not the right track for a starting dog. You know, a new dog
Right.
or new handler that doesn't know how to help the dog get through that.
Right.
You know, Mike just put on here. He said, just like I called you for a deer that I knew was dead, the big 13 point. You know, he did. He called me, so I know this deer's dead. You know,
Yeah.
and kind of what you talked about. You know, number 5, I had style fit.
Yep.
You know, an off lead dog in a fenced backyard. You know, with limited space, you might not be the right team.
Yep.
An on lead dog in dense swamp and chest deep water, you know, it's a disaster.
just sounds like it. Probably full of gators too, right?
Yeah, it's yeah, the job needs the right style, you know, not hope. You know, not the right hope. You know, and the other side of it is Hail Mary tracks, burn handlers, burn dogs, and lose deer.
Yep.
Just point blank.
Yep. Yep.
So, you know, and it's I've seen it time and time again where, you know, people they'll want to jump on a gut shot right away, and we've struggled with this issue with multiple people over the years, newer trackers that, you know, I'll tell them, hey, you know, we need to wait. You know, if the best odds are for us to wait, and then you get these new trackers that, you know, may have a bloodhound and they think that they can just get on it right away, and they end up pushing it, and then I get a phone call,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that this guy took the track out from under me that I thought we were waiting, you know, 6 hours, and now he's pushed it 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
And then he just pushed that scent 1.5 miles. Then coyotes got on it, ran another mile, and I got a disaster to clean up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I can tell you, I wasn't easy on that tracker.
No, I don't suppose. And that, to me, what you just described there isn't necessarily a right team problem. That's just a poor judgment issue.
Well, it was both. It was both.
Yeah. Okay.
It was the wrong team and a poor judgment.
Yeah, by going as early as they did.
They went early with the wrong type of dog to even attempt to go in early.
And that's where I was going. Yeah. You know, the wrong, you know, with the right type of dog and the right tracking style and the right team, you can maybe get away with the gut shot at that, you know, 4 hours. With a bloodhound, I'm here to tell you, as much as I love my bloodhounds and I love bloodhounds, that ain't right, man. That's just not the right combination. It's not the right tool for the job. Now, if you want to alter the conditions of the job by saying 12 hours, okay, you got a pretty damn good tool then.
Yeah.
But the circumstances around the job changed.
Yep.
You know the other thing that I thought of, and I don't want to interrupt your flow, Kenny, if you have something else you want to talk about.
Go ahead.
But there's something, another track. The two things that I immediately thought of when Chuck brought this up was the one that I described my personal situation, then the one that you told me about, and I'll withhold the handler's name and let you use your discretion. But it was in Iowa, and it was a test.
Mm-hmm.
And the test circumstances was in a tornado torn wood lot that made it very, you know. You want to tell the story?
No. I'll say who it was. It was John Sturdivant.
Yeah,
and I want to say that because I want to give him credit for what he did.
Absolutely, and I agree. But I wanted you to do it. But tell the story, because I think that's commendable as hell.
Yeah. So last year in Iowa, when we got there, we ended up with a lot more tests than we originally had signed up. And it was Charlie Webb and I that went there. And, you know, we and then Jeff still was a judge, but Jeff also had his hands full as an event host, getting the food and getting the other stuff, making sure we had supplies running around. And we had some apprentices and some new judges that really, didn't have the event experience, but they stepped up to the plate and they did a good job. And we started running out of land. I mean, we just had a lot more tests than was anticipated. And so we ended up having to use some areas that we really didn't want to, but at the end of the day, it's stuff that we would really track in. And so it was the judge was Chris Moffitt, I believe. And Chris is a pretty solid judge. And he knew when he laid it, he's like, man, he came back and told me this is rough. It got rough in there. And John has a tackle, wire-haired Dachshund.
There you go. Yep.
And John shows up, he tracks in his flip-flops. But anyways, so he gets there, and as soon as he gets there, he looks at it and he said, this was a real track. I would make the decision right now that I'm not the right team for this job.
And hats off to you, John.
And he ran the test. He ran the test line, and he did go over by a few minutes. But the committee got together and made a call on that. I mean, it wasn't much, but he had, like I said, he had the Dachshund, and these were it was just blow down after blow down of big trees.
Yeah.
And he was having to pick his dog up over the trees. I mean, it was not fun. But he said right away, and then when he came back, and he had already accepted that he did not pass the test. And Chris came back and he ran it by us. He said, look, this is the scenario. This is what happened. He showed me video, pictures. And, and then he said, the first thing when we got there, John said, if this was a real track, I'd call someone else because I'm not the right team for the job. And all that went into that equation because that showed some pretty solid
self-awareness.
Yes, self-awareness, decision-making, selflessness.
Selflessness, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And because of the circumstances, we made the decision that, we allowed for that extra time because that was not a fair conditions for the level test it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And he did complete the test successfully in terms of tracking.
Oh, yeah.
It
no callbacks.
Just went over by a few minutes on the time.
Yep. Yeah. And no callbacks was a factor as well. I mean,
oh, good Horvins. Yes. No callbacks is huge. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just,
when you factor it into that circumstance.
Yeah. And that was and Jeff still had to run in that same area just a little bit over for his finish line, and it was brutal. It was bad. But we had to do what we had to do. We run out of land. In fact, we did run out of land because we had some more tests sign up, and Chris and Jeff stepped up, and the next morning they went to another piece of property and ran some lines.
Yeah.
But that said a lot about John, and even then he didn't want to accept the pass because he's like, no, I don't want the integrity of the testing process. I said, no, you earned it. That's
but so let me comment on that. So that did not impede the integrity of the tracking or infringe on the integrity of the tracking process. That was or the testing process. That was a testing process working.
Right.
Because it went to a committee. There is no decision. There are no decisions made in a vacuum in terms of pass fail. So in this situation, and I just want to put it out there, for clarification, just for testing clarity. Yes, we have a standard on time for all of our tests, and it's appropriate. The UBT does too now. They have a standard. And in order for it to be a standard, it must be upheld. However, we also have inherent in our process is the test line approval through the committee and the pass-fail decision by the committee. Good Lord, spit it out. So when there are circumstances, now if John would have if that had been flat ground and the dog just went slow and he had no callbacks and he was over, well, then he was over. I mean, I had a test like that this weekend. I mean, it killed me, but it was just a bridge too far to try to advocate for a pass. And it happens. The dog was, but the committee and that discussion and the facts of the situation are applied, and then the committee collaborates or deliberates and makes a decision, almost like a jury. So it's an execution of the process. That doesn't happen a lot.
No.
It shouldn't happen a lot. But when there are exceptions to the time limit, the committee has the ability to take into account all of the circumstances and the feedback from the judge and make an informed decision based on that specific circumstance. So I'm babbling, I'm rambling, but it's not willy-nilly. It's not the judge, man, I'm going to give it to you. It's close enough. It's not any of that. It's an informed intellectual conversation based on the facts and the circumstances. So there, I'll get off my soapbox, buddy, but I wanted to take that moment.
So, we talked about the Hunter interview a little bit to kind of screen that and feel the, are you the right team? We didn't go in depth, but, there's just, we all know what questions asked. We went over this before, but there's some red flags.
Mm-hmm.
When a hunter says, it's just a little gut hit, we walked around a bit. There's a red flag. The translation is they stomp the line out and want you to pull off the miracle.
Yes.
And you might be a new tracker. You need to be honest with yourself. I'm not saying don't accept the track, but maybe call someone that is right for the team. Say, hey, this is the call I got. I'm going to go. Do you mind backing me up?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not about not taking the track. It's about knowing that you might need support.
Yes, that's right. Because if we're talking about experience, the way you get experience is taking the tracks. But the way to manage that is exactly what you said. Have a plan, have a backup. If your plan doesn't work out or you're not able to do it, now you can get your buddy to come in and work through it. And if you do it right, you're not mucking up the track anymore anyway. You've got to have that self-awareness, say, okay, I've done enough reasonable work here before I contaminate it any further. Let me call Bill. But you've got to get that experience. But it's just that open transparency. And Calvin, we'll get to Calvin's comment, but that's what he talks about. So
and I will say this one thing that I do, and anyone that I've tracked with will tell you, if you call me to back you up and I go on the track and I do recover the deer, first off, I'd like for you to be there when we track it again. And I'm not going to try to do something behind someone's back.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is if we recover that deer and the hunter says, hey, can I get your number? I don't give it to him. I'll say, no, this was Mike's track. Give Mike a call next time. If he can't get to it, he'll reach out to me.
I do the very same thing. I'm like, man, you just he's your guy. Start with him. If he's not able to, I do the very same thing.
Yeah, it's just that it's common courtesy, but it's not very common, especially in today's tracking world. That'll be another topic. So there's kind of a red flag for the hunter. And another red flag is I called another tracker, but he couldn't make it out, and or I had another tracker out here, but their dog just wouldn't do anything. All red flags. And call that other tracker. But we need to look at some red flags for the dog and from you. You know, is the dog panting? Does it have dull eyes? Is late season burnout? Is it losing drive just from fatigue?
Yeah.
You know, you probably don't need to take that track. It's probably time to give it a break.
And let's reference back to the back-to-back series we did on dog intelligence and fatigue, and then handler mental fatigue. We didn't call it mental, So all of that, and that's what you're referring to there, and being aware of it.
And here's a big red flag for you. Are you hungry for a win after a dry spell?
Aren't we all?
But
you got to manage it.
Right.
You've got to manage it. You've got to be aware of it. And you've got to manage it.
You know, if you're hungry for that win after a dry spell and you're just willing to take it or do some things that aren't right, that's ego.
Yeah.
You need to make the right call.
Yeah, that aren't in the best interest of a recovery, or the best interest of the hunter. Yeah, you're right. If you're gonna take it just because, by God, there's a chance you might get it, and I really want to get a fine, when you know that critter could get it, because that's their wheelhouse. You need to let critter do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I put together a few little questions that you can ask yourself in the truck. Has my dog worked this type of shot successfully? Is the trail age and distance in our wheelhouse? Are we both fresh and focused?
Yes.
Am I doing this for the deer or for myself? And that's a big one. Especially when it comes to not waiting. Randy commented, he said, hallelujah, Kenny, just don't start passing out cards and such. If I refer you to a track, I can't get to it. And Randy will tell you, and I'm sure he'll say it here, he'll vouch for you. We're not far apart. We track a lot of the same areas. I do not take a track in Randy's area without calling Randy first. Never.
Yeah.
And almost every time Randy says, no, go ahead and take it, but do you mind if I come along?
Mm-hmm.
But he'll tell you every year, I will call him and say, Randy, I got a call right down the road from you. Are you available? And he'll either be available and I'll tag along with him if I'm not too backed up, or he'll say, no, I'm an hour and a half away. If you want to take it, take it.
Yep.
And same thing. I mean, he's called me early season sometimes in his county. A lot of the hunters just don't hunt in that area, and he'll be a little slower, and he'll say, hey, I haven't had any tracks. You mind if I come tag along? And we do that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you know why? Because the next call is just minutes away, probably, or hours away. You're getting the call. You're getting the next call. By you running a track in Randy's backyard does not impact Randy's ability to get another track and run.
No. And to stay on topic, I can't tell you how many tracks where Randy and I have worked together. And I've shared some on here. I shared one, I believe it was last week, whenever we were talking about that deer that hooked.
Yeah.
And the boy's dad wanted to give up. That was a track that Randy called me and said, hey, Reba got too hot. I think you can get this deer. There was another one where he called us, and if I'd have been prepared, I'd have put the picture up. And I shared the story of the buck that charged him, and he had to, or me and him, he got behind a tree and Xena grabbed it. Randy called me and he said, hey, it's hot, overheated. And he told the guy, he says, look, I feel like we could bay this deer up, and I know the right guy for this job.
Yeah.
Said, but he's 2.5 hours away. And the guy's like, well, what does he charge? And Randy's like, yeah, he's not going to charge, but this is what you're going to give him. He's coming 2.5 hours. He's got the right dogs. And we ended up getting that deer, and we've done that many times. Mike's done that. Mike's called me Mike has called me and said, hey, I got a call and I don't feel like we're going to get it. I feel like it's still going to be alive. Are you available with the Cur Dogs if I need you? Mike does that every season.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, so it's go, no go, or refer out. Those are your options.
Yeah, I agree.
And to me, a go is the dog's proven on this and conditions match your strengths. A no-go is out of your depth, know it and own it. Because know your dog, know your limitations.
Yep.
And, you know, refer out, you know, you could do it, but someone else would do it better, let them. And I'll tell you, we refer a lot of tracks out. I say we, our group in this area, you know, we refer tracks back and forth all the time. And every year I send John on, I don't know, probably 100 tracks that I refer to John. And, you know, John will refer some to me. I'll send some to Jason Byer and Mike. And probably 90% of the time I refer a track out, that person calls me the next time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if John went out there and he recovered that deer, they call me next time because they know I'm going to take care of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I had a guy, actually, it was just a couple of months ago that I talked to. He's like, man, well, it was the one I showed you the video of the lab.
Yeah.
I've got it 3/4 done. You know, he's like, man, I'm glad to finally meet you. I've called you a couple of times and you referred trackers, and I call you because you know, I know that you're going to get me taken care of. You know, so don't think just because you refer a track out, you're going to lose that person.
That you're losing a client. Yeah. And I will tell you that I hate the term client in the tracking world. I save people in my phone as client because it's how I identify them. But I hate that term because that's transactional business, and that's not what tracking is to me. It's relational, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, I've been working on a project. One of the things I put together is grinders don't chase everything that bleeds. They chase what they've trained to recover. They leave ego behind, bring ethics to the front. You're not a tracking team until you know when not to track.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
You know, and all of this right here is really what led us to start our mentorship program. And we started it. Well, I don't even know. It was a while ago, a really in-depth, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago is when we really hammered it. And we really cracked down about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, where we've really structured it pretty strong. Maybe 4 now. Who knows? Time goes by so fast. But it has made a tremendous difference in our state, in our trackers. It's eliminated a lot of drama. It's drove success rates up drastically. You know, because these teams are, you know, they're getting quality training. They're not, you know, we're not allowing them to to take the calls without going through their mentor.
Yeah, off from your network list. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You know, and then we get some people that try to skirt. Oh, it was a direct call. Where did your direct call derive from? If you really want to talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, now they're starting to understand. Hey, even that, you know, makes a difference. And we tell the apprentices. We say, hey, even if you get a call from your buddy, you call your mentor and you go over it. You discuss it and you discuss the plan of attack and mid track. If you need help, reach out. They'll help. And when the track is over, do a debrief. Let's talk about the outcome. You know, the execution and the outcome. You know, it's made a huge difference in the tracking community in our state.
Sure. Yeah, I had people that I could go to and do that when I first got in it, and these people were instrumental in my development, and still use them for that today. And but it wasn't as structured or regimented as you just described, But it was there, and my network. We've talked about what a more structured mentorship program might look like for new applicants.
Well, a lot of them's going to see it this weekend. They're going to see what we do.
Yes, they will. Yes,
so
they will.
I got a. It's not. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but that is something we're going to touch on because it's needed. It's needed everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just another element of it, and here I go again talking about the acumen, how everything fits together. Maybe you don't have that particular hole that piece of information can fill in your little structure, but somebody does, and there's a hole in you somewhere that every little that the answer to it is out there somewhere that you can pluck and insert. So sharing information is always good.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I'm going to give another example of knowing your team and knowing the right decision to make. I shared a story. I've shared this one before, but one of my Dachshunds, Otto, he was. Can't remember if it was his first or second season. I think it was his second season. Anyways, I got a call at a high fence, and it was a 196-inch buck.
Little one.
And the shot was videoed, and I didn't think that we could stop the deer. I mean, although it looked like a perfect shot, it really did. But what they missed is the leg was back, and it hit the leg with a bow.
Yeah.
So I had my cur dog, but I knew what was going to happen. I knew my team, so I knew she was going to jump that deer up. She was going to run it, and that deer wasn't going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled out Otto, and I ran him off lead, and I said, he typically works a little bit slower. Maybe we can sneak in and get this shot. And I made the decision for a couple of reasons. One, I knew the terrain. I knew the working style of the dog. And I knew that a deer like that is not going to fear the little dog as much. And it would likely stand to fight rather than run.
Yeah.
So I turned him out, and he baited up in a wide open field. And
Otto baited up. Otto the baying tackle, huh?
Oh yeah, he'll bay now. Oh, he'll grab one if he can. So we get up there, and of course they didn't want to listen to me. I'm like, look.
Uh-oh.
Because we're not going to get any. I lost signal, I guess. Anyways, I said, we're not going to get any closer. You better use that rifle you got over your shoulder. Guy's like, no, I want to finish it with a bow, blah, blah, blah. And I told this story before it breaks. He's like, well, if that dog can stop, your cur dog can. Nope. We ran it all over that high fence, and it couldn't stop it. And then I told another story before. I know you guys probably get tired of hearing these. When I called John, I had Dixie out there, and she was struggling on this track bad, and I don't know why. She was it was fatigue, really. I mean, I know why.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't see it, and John was coming back from another track to my house with Otto, and I said, hey, bring Otto. And this was his first season, if I remember right. And he found the deer. He beat her to it. It was alive, and it ran off with him latched to the side of it. But again, knowing when to make those decisions, and Yeah, you should have seen
Hotel Wi-Fi.
She's struggling. He's already accepted it. We're not fine, and he's accepted. We're not finding this deer. And I bring that little dog out, and we find the deer. But
So what you're saying is little dogs can track big deer?
Oh yeah,
of course they can.
Oh yeah,
of course.
And they can stop deer that other dogs will pressure.
For what you just described, they don't see them as they're the size of a groundhog. Ain't too many groundhogs terrorizing deer.
Right.
The Teckle has the the personality of the Tasmanian devil, so for fearless, but physical stature is not too intimidating, I'm sure.
Right. Yep. You mind putting Wayne Reese's comment on there?
Yeah, I was just looking at it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Wayne said, we made some mistakes early on and learned that our limitations don't make you a bad team. I also believe without a mentor to back you up, your confidence will limit you and your dog's ability. A good mentor pushes you and your dog's ability to do things you didn't think was possible. And if you fail, they're there to back you up.
And I got a story on that, but share your thoughts.
Go ahead.
So, Wayne, I appreciate you bringing that up, particularly about your mentors. What did you put? Your mentor will pushes you into and your dog's ability to do things you didn't think was possible. So, my first year, it was our last track of the season, December 30th or something like that. Hour and 15 minutes away, state land. We go down there, everything sounded pretty decent. And I've probably told this story before on here because I tell it all the time. And we didn't find the deer that night. We tracked. I was new. The dog was just a year old. She tracked for a while, then it got squirrely. And at that time, if the hunter walked somewhere, it was a damn sure lock that my dog was going to walk where that hunter walked. And son of a gun, she did. She walked. I'm like, God dang it, man. And, that's just youth and inexperience in the dog. She doesn't do that as much now. Really, I don't worry about it at all now. But back then it was a problem or a concern. Let me put it that way. And finally, she got on what I thought was probably the right track or the right line, and it looped back into this wood lot. Hunter ended up calling it. I wasn't sure. We'd spent a lot of time circling around, found a giant wad of gut and intestine hanging in this thorny bush that it looked like the deer jumped over or something. I don't know how it got that high up in the bush. It was eye level for me, and that confused us. Well, I says, all right, man, the hunter called it. So we're coming out, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll come back in the morning, and I wasn't sure. I didn't know what to think. The guts, I didn't. Like, talking to my mentor, he says, you will go back. He says, you will go back in the morning. Because I'm like, hey, I was trying to find somebody else to come back because I thought that, we didn't know what we were doing, and I was all worried about it and feeling down and inadequate and all of the things. And Brian says, no, you will go back. You go back and you track it the next morning. I text Hunter, I'll be there in the morning. And I can't be. I'm like, don't worry about it, man. I know where it's at. Let me just, I'm coming back. Sure as hell, Kenny. We went back to the hit site. She took a totally different line, but she was air scenting it the whole way. And I did a take on it on my own YouTube channel about air scenting and scent drift. But 300 yards after we broke out of the woods, right to the dead deer, But the reason I went back is because my mentor pushed me and insisted that I get over my pouty pants self and go freaking find this deer. And I'll be damned if that didn't happen.
Yep.
surrounding yourself with good people that believe in you and can help guide you is absolutely priceless, man. Oh, Kenny froze up again. But yeah, Wayne, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing. There, are you back, buddy?
Yeah, this internet here every now and it's going to cut out.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's like I tell my apprentices, I send them out on their own pretty much from the rip. And it's like I tell all of them, look, a lot of my calls, especially during gun season, I got to track behind 15, 20, 30 head of deer dogs that's ran that block.
Oh, that's right. See, that's another thing that's so foreign for me. And we Northerners, we're not used to that. So I've never given that 1 ounce of thought, Kenny, in all of this time we've been doing this until you just said that.
Yeah. So what I tell them is, hey, you can't mess that line up enough for me to come in behind you and find a deer if it's dead and can be found.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be cocky. I'm saying that because I'm pretty confident if the deer's dead, we're going to find it. Now, have we left dead deer in the woods? You're dang right we have.
Sure.
And if someone tells you they haven't, they just haven't been tracking long enough. But again, that's knowing my team, and I'll tell them, hey, you go do what you got to do. We'll work it out. If you can't figure it out, call me and I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
What has ended up happening is now pretty much every team in our area is the same way. We get a new tracker that comes in, hey, go run it. We'll help you out. We'll be there. And you know what? Most of the time, especially early season, we'll all show up.
Yeah. Yep. I do
want to touch on Chuck's comment there. Some gritty biters that don't catch will push a deer to break bay. Some dogs that do catch will push a deer to break. Because I have both. Dixie will catch. So that works both ways. And I don't know why there's that mindset out there that, but yeah. Deer ain't weak enough, doesn't matter what you have.
It's true. It's funny. We talked about Chuck says gritty. We talked about the word grit, and not the word grit, but what grit is earlier this week. We'll talk about later, but it's funny they brought up.
I got a whole slide on that for this weekend.
I can't wait to see it.
Actually, it's in your email.
I did look at that. Okay. I didn't ingest it, but I cruised through it today when I should have been catching up on emails. But I did look at it. Let's grab some other comments. Do you have anything, Kenny?
No, go ahead.
I'm just going to grab some of these, and I don't. I'm not going to pre-screen some of them. What Shane Mason, I personally think if you got too much pride to call and ask for help, then you do not need to be tracking for the public. Well, that
you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
You just it. Yeah, there's just no reason, and it's going to catch up to you because if you're in it for the wrong reasons, then your reputation's going to get out there and it's going to get lumpy.
Oh yeah. We got a presentation for that too. You've seen it.
Yep. Chuck says the phone interview is critical for this subject. Yeah, it is, man. And just knowing what question to ask and knowing what to listen for. Kenny, you mentioned it, the red flags. It's not even so much necessarily the direct questions to ask, but what to listen for.
Yep.
Megan Schmidt says, our Central Oklahoma teams have a chat group. We discuss tracks, we get calls on, and who's available to go. Their thoughts on shots, wait times, etc. Cuts down on miscommunication, burnouts, and hunters double booking. It's worked out well for us. Yeah, we do too. The Michigan Deer Tracking Network and the Michigan Deer Trackers, they have a chat specific for at least the MDTN has a chat specific for, we call it the tracks only chat. You can't get to one, or someone reach out to you, you can put it in there, and if someone's available in the area, they can grab it. So that's that networking, that's that community. And I have again, I'm going to riff on that word community in this context at some point.
And I'm going to tell you, we're pretty tight, and we get someone in our area that falls out of line, they're not a tracker very long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you start stealing tracks out from under one of us, or you start trying to undercut wait times or tell people that we're wrong, you're not tracking very long.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
it'll hurt all of us.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at John's comment here. I'm starting a new dog this season. I know we talked about not putting the novice dog only on easy tracks, gut shots, and leaving the seasoned dog for the difficult tracks. Sounds like there's a balance needed of difficult, but not too difficult. I'm going to let you feel.
I'll tell you what I do. I put that pup on every track. Yeah. Every track. That's the first dog that comes out on every track. If they can't work it out, then I go grab the seasoned dog. That's how you make a dog. You know, you hear a lot of people that says when you get multiple dogs, one of them's left behind. That's because people use that seasoned dog too much as a crutch. You know, use it as the tool. You know, that dog seasoned. Now it's time to give the new dog time to shine and learn.
Yeah.
You know, now I understand if you're in the rut, you know, and you're getting backed up, but you know, if you got two dogs and you're starting a young one, put that young one on every track first.
Yeah. And that's if you have two dogs. If you only have a young dog, then the decision is made for you. You don't have to worry about, well, what dog do I use?
So no, John, and I'll tell you this: I had two dogs. I had a bloodhound and a blackmouth cur. And I know I've said this before, but someone may be listening that doesn't know. And BJ Johnson, you see him commenting, he'll tell you about my red cur Xena. But I had a bloodhound and that red cur, and my bloodhound got taken out due to health issues that season, and she was 6 months old. And then Randy went out for health reasons, and that little red dog at 6 months old by herself put 108 deer on tailgate that season.
Yeah.
When you don't have another option and you work that dog, you make that dog.
Yep.
You know, we had 138 tailgated deer that year. 108 of them were her by herself, and she was 6 months old to start the season. And I didn't turn down many tracks. You know, even ones that I knew were Hail Marys and misses, and you know, I was going.
Yep. And that is the epitome of experience is the best teacher.
Yep.
Yep.
And honestly, I really didn't have anyone to call then because it was just me and Randy for hours and hours. You know, but you know, we made it work.
Yeah. I'm going to jump comments here because it's on topic. Compass Rose Catahoulous, I think that's Julia, says, what if you only have one dog? You just heard it.
Yep.
Drop him. You know, now again, but let's qualify that a little bit, Kenny. Drop the dog. But in that situation, if you have an experienced team nearby that could back you up, say, hey, I would like to take my dog out. I got a young dog, full one, and that goes to Calvin's comment, and we'll get to that in a minute too. 100% disclosure, always, full transparency with the hunter about where you're at in your career in terms of your tracking trajectory. I don't give a shit about number of recoveries, but you can be honest about where you're at in your trajectory and your experience level. But call that local guy and say, you know, I'd like to put my young dog on it. If it doesn't work out, are you available? Or would you like to come with me and be available with me if my young dog can't do it. You know, but that, drop the dog. But again, you always have to measure, are we, going back to the theme of this stream, are we the right team for the job? Well, maybe not per se, but if you can have that ace in the hole or that backup, then yes, you are, because it's all about building that experience. It's a classic, well, I don't want you, no, we're looking for somebody for experience. Okay, well, I need to get on tracks to get experience, or I need to do the job to get experience. So it's that, chicken and egg kind of thing. So yeah, Julia, if you've got one dog, drop it.
Well,
Call me though. If I'm close to you, I'd certainly back you up if I could.
yeah, well, so BJ Johnson, I'm going to talk about him for a minute. BJ, we track for BJ a lot, and BJ will tell you, we all work together in our area. I've tracked for BJ. John Vaughn has tracked for BJ. Brandon Granberg, Jason Byer. 2 years ago, BJ called me and I said, "Yeah, I've got one ahead of you, and I'll be there." And I was about half dead when I showed up. And I told BJ, I said, "Hey, I got another guy coming. He's on his way from Tallahassee. He's about an hour away, but I'm going to be there." And I did. Yeah, I stayed in the truck with BJ, but I was, he'll tell you we work together. And we've got a pretty good tracker about 30 minutes north of me, Brandon Granberg. And, he was really gung-ho in the beginning, and, we butted heads a little bit because he was just ambitious. And, we have our mentorship program. We had guidelines and, some things. Anyways, things went in a direction we didn't want them to go. And then we worked it out. And one of the first tracks, whenever I called Brandon, I was assigned as his mentor, was BJ's. And I called Brandon. I said, "Hey, I got a track. You want to go?" He said, "Yeah." And I had two very, very strong dogs, and they were struggling. And Brandon's young dog found the deer.
Good.
It didn't bother me.
Well, no.
At the end of the day, I mean, I was happy. We got the pictures. Me, Brandon, my two dogs, his dog, and BJ, and we got that deer.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and that's how it should be, man. That's just how it should be. Let's go back up. I think where did I leave off here? My goodness, we got a lot of big comments. Good, keep them coming, guys. Mike Aguilar, exhausted handlers and dogs are a real thing. That's why I feel it's important to have good relationship with fellow trackers in your area. I think that weekend I called you, Kenny. We were nonstop from Thursday to Sunday with less than 10 hours sleep in that time. Man, you guys.
Yep. And I was the same way. It was peak of the rut. We were running wild.
Tracking machines down there. Let's go grab my buddy Calvin's. This is why new trackers. Okay, yeah, the transparency thing. This is why new trackers need to have full, straightforward honesty with hunters when receiving a call. Honesty in your approach will help you in the long run with not only the hunter but the other team you may refer. Too often, new trackers have the tendency to gung-ho and eventually end up costing hunters deer to poor judgment and decisions. Yeah, poor judgment or just judgment based on lack of experience. Yeah, Calvin. I've said it here before. My first year, every call I took, I tell everybody, "Hey, this is our first year. Be glad to help you. But if you want an experienced team, I will not be offended, and I'll help you get one." And nobody turned me down. Nobody turned me down.
No,
they won't.
They won't. You might get one or two here or there, but like with our network, we don't let that happen.
Yeah. Yep. if you see a particular comment that jumps out at you, Kenny, let me know. I'm just kind of rolling down through.
Yeah, Gene Ferris's comment, he says, I personally will not put a puppy on any track for the public unless I get a call from a friend saying he has me a puppy track. I take care of that in the training. And then also, like I said, I'm going to put it on every track. Puppy or not, it's going on every track. And I'm going to have dogs to back me up, whether it's my dogs or another team. But I'm honest, I got a call this year on a deer that we knew was going to be alive. And I mean, it was likely to die, but it was going to be alive. And I was honest. The guy said, "Look, I'm bringing some dogs. These are not my trained tracking dogs, but these are some dogs that will stop that deer." And so I was honest about it.
Yeah,
and we did. We got the deer, but it's making that right call. But like I said, and I'm not saying that Gene's wrong in what he's doing. That's his choice. But I'll just say I want him to be out there in the field. My time for puppy tracks is in the mock trails.
Yeah, and we have that discussion in our network too. It's just there's different approaches. There's a million ways to do things, man, and and I'm
not knocking Gene for that.
No, not at all. No, and I get it. And, I know there's, do you put them only, I don't know. I don't know what the long-term looks like, but I know a lot of people who have trained a lot of different ways. All of them are recovering deer. So right and effective. Let's not confuse the two, right? Wrong can be ineffective, but I don't know if it's right. Well, was it effective? That answer is yes, then maybe it wasn't wrong. I want to grab this one just because we're trying to get Jeff on. Amanda Fitzpatrick says, "I love how the concepts cross over to man trailing." And that came in early when we were, talking about and I like that because we want to get Jeff on, and we're going to talk about the man trailing and the crossovers and the parallels and is there anything from the man trailing world that maybe we haven't seen before that could be applied to what we do and
don't get too deep into my bags of tricks.
I'm not getting into your bags of tricks. No. That's just how I think. Kevin Wilkie. Kevin, just appreciate it, man. What great topics y'all come up with. Appreciate you guys. Well, we appreciate you for listening and being a fan, man, and sharing the stuff and comments like that keep us inspired because it's work. I kind of talked about it yesterday when we let in, just the mental and emotional fatigue of what it takes to do what we love to do is it's real. So that helps. So thank you, Kevin. Let's Compass Rose again. When you share tracks, is that 2 dogs out there or just 2 people?
Depends on the situation.
Yeah.
And it also depends on the laws of the state. I mean, here we can turn them out, but it all depends on the situation. Sometimes I'll just tag along and be support.
Yeah. I haven't been tracking all that long, but I've never been on a track where 2 dogs were used at the same time. I've called in backup, and Brent brought Moose out, his tackle, and backed me up, and I followed along with Brent, and we just that deer is dead in that freaking 500-acre swamp somewhere. But I've never had 2 dogs, and frankly, I wouldn't want that. To me, I'm very much it would feel too out of control for me.
Oh no,
because it's not what I'm accustomed to.
You'll get there. Best thing you can do is have 2.
Maybe so. The right dogs and the right training and all of that. Maybe so. What Emily says, to me, if I pass a track my buddy, that's his hunter. I have several solid trackers in my area, and competition is tight, but we all work together, and that's how it should be. And I don't even consider it competition, man. Michigan, I've said it before, there was in 2023 there were 241 registered trackers. That's a lot, and there's 500,000 licensed hunters. But yeah.
Well, I can tell you this. We have probably 8 to 10 times the trackers in my area than we did 10, 12 years ago. My numbers have not went down, and they're tracking just as much as I am.
Yeah.
More trackers brings more exposure, which brings more tracks.
You got it. I'm hoping to get another. I mean, this southeast quadrant of Michigan, there aren't many people down there, and there is nobody in either of the two primary networks. And my goodness, and then there's a guy down there that is an up and comer, and I think that I like him. He shadowed me on a track last year that we actually recovered the deer on, and I can't wait till we get another person down there. It's a kind of a long haul for me, and it'll just be nice, man. And especially when they're good people, we'll be backing each other up like crazy. I mean, like you and Randy, Brent Ladd's just 20 miles from me. Maybe he may not even be that far. We're always on the phone. Hey, you got this? Can you go to that? Hey man, I sent one your way, and he does the same thing, man. It's just how we're great friends.
There's areas I don't care if I ever go back to.
I hear you there. I hear you there.
I was praying there would be trackers in some of those areas.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I hear you there. Well, for me, I like to do tracks after work. After the time change and stuff, it gets dark quick, and I like to do, but I don't like to drive more than 30 minutes after work if I don't have to. I'm not the guy that's going to be out there till 3 a.m. on a weeknight. Like a lot of people are. It's not that I'm not committed. It's just knowing your limits, right? Knowing your mental fatigue, knowing you got to go to your corporate job and make important decisions the next day. I don't make important decisions, but I have people, other people make important decisions. I just take credit for them. No, I'm teasing. I don't. I'm teasing. Mike Maynard, Florida is a good group of people. They don't have to be your mentor, and they are willing to give you a hand and if available, or advice on what to do next. There's a few trackers I ask advice from, but never met. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a formal mentor, and then there's others that offer mentorship, and 100%. You see what Adam says. The way my mentor taught me was that you should not take public tracks until you are a seasoned team. Calling backup for anything other than exhaustion or injury is completely unacceptable. He also said if you can't handle any situation that may arise, you shouldn't be tracking for the public. Not saying that he is right, but that's the way I was taught. Well, that is a very bold opinion, and just like
I'm going to say it like it is, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't care if anyone comes at me or not with that. It's wrong. How in the world do you become seasoned without the experience?
And there you have it. Yeah,
my opinion or not. I mean, I'm just going to say how I feel. And
yeah, I don't subscribe to that. I will tell you that. Maybe a little not as yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have came across that bowl, but that's just how I feel about it. And Adam's been successful, so I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but how the heck do you become a seasoned tracker if you're not out there doing it?
Well, it just makes a long curve.
Yeah.
You just take,
But that is the old school mentality.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. Yep. Letting us track on our own for me really helped me work my tail off to have a recovery, which in turn made us a better team. If you just run for the easy ones, you'll never get better. Hear, Wayne.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know, Wayne will tell you his mentor had a mentor last year. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you know, we all work together.
Did we get BJ's? Did we get this one from BJ? It's hard to
You
tell.
mentioned it.
It's hard to tell that hunter that a deer is not dead. Some trackers do it better than others. Well, yeah, we've talked about that 100 times, man, and it's not easy. It's not fun, and particularly when you're newer, the more experienced you get, the easier it becomes because you're more adept at setting it up from the beginning. You're more adept at managing the expectations on the initial call, at the truck, throughout the track. If you're constant in communication with your hunter, telling them what you're seeing and what, you know, to a degree, to you know what signs suggest, and that's how I always do it too. I'm like, well, based on the information available, you know, it suggests that you know, and then what I do is, you know, we start to talk about, okay, so we're starting to get some things stacking up that suggest, for example, you thought you hit high and this does look like muscle blood and oh this or oh that or whatever. So all of these things tend to align that suggest a non-lethal hit. And my dog is kind of confirming that too, based on, you know, the way she's behaving, which you have briefed them on at the truck. So, you know, a lot of times they'll call it themselves, but you're right, BJ. It's not always easy.
No. Yeah, I just tell them up front anymore. You know.
You know what? I thought about this the other day because I wanted to ask you this. As long as we're on the topic on that subject, so when the deer's on, you know, not something you're going to recover, Dixie would come back and jump on you, and you brief everybody so they know when Dixie comes back and jumps up to say, "Hey, pet me now," that the track's over at that point. How long did it take Dixie to get there?
It didn't take her long. It took me long to trust her.
It took you longer. So she figured it out quicker, but at the same time, you're doing a bazillion tracks a year. So she was getting a lot of experience jammed in.
Yeah. And I will say this, you know, I've had a lot of tracking dogs over the years, and there's kind of a magic number. I feel like it really starts coming together when you hit around that 50 to 60 track mark. That's when things start coming together.
Yep.
Adam Clough's comment, he responded, I get to us, said, you track with your friends that have good dogs, and you track your own deer and friends' deer until you are ready for public tracks. That's how I was taught to get started. That's pretty much what we do. But there's times where we can't get to one, and that's how we do it. Like in our mentorship apprenticeship program, is every call has to go through a vetted tracker first. If they're not available, then it goes to the apprentice.
Yeah.
And so we kind of do that same system, but even then we still support them. And they may be a first year tracker, and they may go on that track for the public, but they've got support, they've got backup. So It's kind of a similar situation. It's just the way it was worded before. But
yeah,
even then, I mean, honestly, if I went on just tracks for my friends, I wouldn't get any quality tracks to really teach problem solving to a dog because they're pretty easy.
Yeah.
Your dog doesn't learn from the easy tracks.
Yeah. My goodness, I've lost track of it. We have a bunch of comments, buddy. I'm losing track of where we're at here. Okay, coming down. Yeah, guys, and I know you're commenting and keep them coming. Obviously, we're not going to hit them all.
Oh, we'll hit them all.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah. John Milton, if there's any folks in Texas that want to network and create a community like some of the other states, send me a message. I'm in North Texas, but travel to South for work a lot. So there you go, Texas folks. John's looking to network and connect, man. Reach out to him. I thought there was another one here. Yeah, Chuck Darby. I thought we were in it to find deer for the hunters, not poke our chests out. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and even then, there's a lot of trackers out there that, and you know, myself included, you can get wrapped up in it easy, and you know, before you know it, your head gets big. You know, you're the man. You know, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find Bigfoot now. Yeah,
yeah, and it happens, but don't write those people off.
Don't worry. They can turn around. We all get yeah. Dylan says called a few different friends to help us last year. Matt helped me. Oh, thanks, buddy. Matt helped me over the phone with one recover. Always helps to ask an opinion, help if needed. Yeah, Dylan, I think I know what track you're talking about. I was going to try to back you up, but I couldn't get up there. And guess what? You and Zert kept grinding and found it anyway. Yep, I'm glad I could help, buddy.
Larry Beckham's comment right there says it should give the hunter some confidence when you tell them you're new, but you have some experienced guys to lean on if you get stuck. And that does go a long ways. And
yeah.
And even now, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but when Hunter starts doubting me, sometimes I'll just pick up the phone. I already know what the answer is, but sometimes I'll just pick up the phone and call another tracker and say, hey, what you think? This is what I have going on. And they just confirm, and the hunter can hear it, the confirmation.
Yeah. Unprompted.
It changes the whole tone.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's grab yours right under that one. My first year, I would tell hunters, this is my first year, but I am confident in our training. I have others I can reach out to if needed. Never had anyone turn us away. Yeah, exactly. You know, so that, it's kind of turning into a first year tracker episode too, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is good. But it all boils back to knowing your limits, understanding who you are, and not only do you need to know your strengths, you need to know your limitations and how to overcome them.
Let me tell you, if you do a hunter interview and there's any question on this is why we have this in our mentorship program, our apprenticeship program. After the hunter interview, we have our apprentices call the mentors and go over it. The reason why is because the experienced people, they know these red flags.
Sure.
And they will pick that apart. Well, did you ask this? Did you ask this? Hey, call them back and ask this, this, and this. And let's try to put the,
yeah.
puzzle. And it just works great.
Yep. Let's see. Brenda Alexander, does American Blood Trackers have anyone in Wyoming mentoring?
I will reach out to some folks and see what we can do. There's not a lot of trackers there, but we do have some. I've been helping someone in that region that could probably help.
Yep, I think I know what you're talking about. Let's see here. Yeah, Joe Sellers. I've had people from Alabama call me in Mississippi needing help. I always find them some help. And that you know what? I'm glad you put that up because that reminds me of another situation. I tracked for a guy our second year. Total, amateur mistake. Went too soon. 5 miles from my house. Went too soon, got shot. We did jump the deer, but like an idiot, I didn't go back. I wish we would have recovered it. Hunter couldn't be there the next day. His brother saw it 2 days later, 50 yards from the tree stand it was shot out of, and it rips my guts out every time. But Sam was great about it. Sam went to Iowa, Kansas, something like that to hunt. And he sent me a note. Hey, man, I just shot a deer. And he ran me all through it. It had the video and everything. Everything absolutely screamed liver hit. I'm like, look, dude, here's the deal. Here's, get out of there. All of the things you tell hunters to do in that situation. Let me go to work. I put one post in my tracking network. Anybody know anybody in this part of whatever state he was in? 5 minutes later, I had a suggestion, got it to Sam. Sam called the guy. They came out that night, recovered his liver shot deer. So, that's the networking, man. And that's where I said, congratulations, MDTN with the assist, because that's what it was. I tracked for him, even though I didn't recover his deer, and we left it. We jumped it. I heard it get up and slither away, and I was a total idiotic imbecile. Sam still called me, and was, and by extrapolation, I was able to help him through my network, which is able to help connect with another network. So it's just how it works, man. I just love that stuff.
I mean, last year I referred tracks in Colorado, New Mexico, Kansas, Missouri, Alabama, Mississippi. I know I'm going to forget some. Louisiana, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee that I can remember. Oh, of course, Georgia, Florida, Alabama.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But all those states, I've never been to Colorado in my life, and I referred, I think, 4 tracks last year. Never been to New Mexico, and I referred 2 tracks in New Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's about those connections. Frank Rotundi says, in order to get better, you need tracks. To get tracks, you need exposure. To get exposure, a network can be of great value. We're a new team, and I will take tracks within a reasonable distance to gain experience in many different situations. And yeah, Frank, I got to tell you, Frank and I chatted today. I think very highly of Frank. You will meet Frank on Saturday, Kenny. Frank's a great, hardworking guy and doing everything right, in my opinion. So
I enjoy tagging along and not even putting my dogs out.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah. Yep. What is this? Gene Ferris says, and I didn't read it all, so it could be a crash and burn. I was trying to teach someone, then between the two of us, we caught him in a lie. I cut him loose because if I can't trust him, I can't trust hunters. I can't ask the hunters to trust Hazel to trust him. Yeah. Trust is the foundation of anything successful, man.
Yep.
Let's see here.
And that's the thing. I mean, even another tracker, you can't trust another tracker until you know that tracker. Just like a dog. If you don't know your dog, you shouldn't trust your dog.
Yeah. Kelly York, I'm not going to lie. I would have been in trouble without my mentor, Chuck. Oh, okay. I have a great group of plenty of backup, and I know so many others as well. But having that mentor to call and bounce things off of and help with, my own confidence was immeasurable. I'm telling you, it matters, man. It absolutely matters. It absolutely matters.
So you didn't think it would go 2 hours, and here we are, an hour and 34 minutes in.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would or not. We're close, but yeah, man. Just if we just reflect again who you are as a team, and then going through all of the things you talked about. What what constitutes the right team. Your dog, is the size of your dog for the terrain. The John Sturdivant story. Your depth of experience. Maybe you're a 10-year tracker and you're just starting your third puppy. Although you as a tracker has experience, your dog doesn't have experience. So, what measures do you need to take there? Are you a rundown team or are you just a track to dead deer team? That's what I am. I'm a track to dead deer team, preferably. All kinds of things. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. All kinds of things go into the determination. But the big thing is, if you take anything away from this, and we talked about a lot of things, just don't lie to yourself. Know who you are, be honest with yourself, and act with good faith and integrity every time. Ensure that your mission is the best interest of the hunter. Now, look, like we talked about, maybe you're not the perfect guy for the job. Maybe you're not the perfect team for that particular track. But if everybody else is busy and can't get to it, and you're the only guy available, any dog is better than no dog in certain situations.
Yeah.
Have that backup plan, outline, use your mentors, all of that stuff.
Well, here's the bottom line. You're not going to lose credibility saying no to a track. You're going to lose credibility leaving a deer in the woods because you made a wrong decision.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yep, I totally agree with that. And I would tell you for the newer trackers listening, as I'm quickly transitioning from a newer tracker to a moderately experienced tracker, that as you gain experience, that fades quickly. That self-doubt, that uncertainty, that apprehension to take a track fades quickly. But I'm going to tell you, it comes from time on task. It comes from taking tracks during the season. It comes from running mock lines or practice lines in the off season. Does that mean you got to run 3 practice lines a week? No, I don't do that. But it means you've got to do stuff. You've got to engage in these informational activities, whether it's listening to this stream, the hundreds of other credible podcasts and sources of credible information that's out there. Just being a bit of a student of the stuff and having an open mind. Ego is a wonderful barrier. A great force field for growth, to prevent growth. And here's another one that I don't consider ego related, but this was my problem, is I guess it's ego defense a little bit, is you don't want to put yourself out there. You don't want, because you're too shy and sheepish and you're afraid of looking foolish. Well, let me tell you something, man. If some of you coming to Michigan, you will hear this from me during my segment, but there is no shame in the game. When we do the intros and open the seminar, but there's no shame in the game, man. If you want to grow and get better, you've got to make yourself vulnerable. Yes, you're going to run into that occasional ass that makes you feel stupid. But let me tell you something. What Johnny says about Joe says more about Johnny than it does Joe. So if somebody pounces on you because you're asking questions as a new developing team, you have to know that the guy that's pouncing on you about it, or the person that's pouncing you on about it, had that same damn question when they were in the same point in their career. So ask those questions. Put yourself out there. Frank and I had this conversation today, Rotundi and I, and he that's one thing I very much admire about him. He is not afraid to ask questions. He is not afraid to put himself out there. And I kind of was. a little bit. I was really guarded about what I would say, and because I didn't want. I felt like I needed to have 6 years experience at 1 year in, and it held me back.
Yeah. So we've talked about, what we haven't talked about, Matt, is how do you learn how to make that decision whether you're the right team or not?
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm sorry.
Do you know? How will you know if you're the right team or not if it's your first year?
Oh, as a first year tracker, yeah, I think
or a new dog. How do you know?
I don't know as you do, but it's time behind your dog. I don't know.
It's in the training,
Yeah. It's in the training.
But you put time in with the dog, its strengths, its weaknesses, its limitations.
Yes.
That's why you run through these drills. You do these grid search isolation drills, your scent gaps, your scent challenges, your different terrain, your water. You're going to know the strengths and weaknesses. If you don't put the time in behind the dog, you're not going to be able to make these decisions properly.
Yes, and the time on task. Repetition is the mother of all skill. I say it all the freaking time. I probably said it twice tonight. I know I've said it at least once. And repetition comes in real tracks and training tracks, the isolation drills, and all hell, isolation drill. I wasn't when I was first year. There's no isolation drills. It's you got to lay a line that's got to be aged forever, and you got to let your dog follow it. And if it doesn't have that sexy overlay, your dog's terrible. And I was embarrassed by it if it wasn't. Well, how short-sighted, and not short-sighted, you just don't know what you don't know at that point.
But the other side of it is when you lay a long trail like that, and I shouldn't even touch on this because I was saving it for this weekend, but there's so many different pieces that you may miss where a dog is struggling because there was an extra element that enabled the dog to bypass that challenge and not have to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely advantages to shorter isolation, more focus based.
Well, I mean that. The way I approach training and think about training now is light years away from where I was 4 years ago. A lot of it's because of stuff like this, indulging in it, sitting back and reflecting on it. Letting my ego defense down, letting my guard down, letting myself be a little vulnerable. Also, some of it comes with experience. The more experience you get, the more you see those things, the more confidence it builds. And then you just start to see things from a different perspective. But the way I think about training now is so different than it was 4 years ago. And, knowing what I know, and, there we go again. My second dog is going to be better for it. I think it'll come along quicker because of the things that I've learned and how I've changed my approach to things because of the experience, because of the mentorship that I've gotten from a lot of friends and people.
Yeah. So James Tucker asked, when do you get on the list to be an apprentice and how do you get a mentor? What state are you in, James? I can't look it up on my end right now. I'm trying to.
Yeah. Alabama.
Okay.
South Alabama.
Yeah. What part of South Alabama? I'll get you hooked up with someone. I'll make some calls.
Close to Charlie and Jason.
Okay, Dothan.
Dothan,
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll get you hooked up.
There you go.
Just remind me, send me a message or something, because I'm not going to lie, I will probably forget. But if you message me, I won't forget. You could also get with Jason. Jason's a good one.
Okay, yeah. Hey, Julie, you're going to have to remind me to remind you to about training areas close to you. But let this conversation trigger for both of us. We will definitely talk about areas to train down by you, Julie, for sure. Yep, Julia. Sorry, I keep calling you Julie. It's Julia. Kenny, after our conversation, I see the difference in short tracks. Mine are laid in town in people's yards. When I lay a long line, I can see the difference.
Yep.
Just goes into you don't need a 900-yard track every time to be.
No, and we do vary them up, but especially this time of year, we run a lot of short stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, we could run a 150, 200-yard track and work on specific problems, put it all together. We have taken a dog, not ran it on a 800-yard track, but we've worked it on short tracks with multiple challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And as it nails this challenge, we move on to another short track with this challenge, and we've tested this theory and never put the dog on a longer track. And then you take that dog that you put all that through and put it on that longer track, and it nails it.
Yeah, because it's just following the scent. I mean, it knows what to do. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's all about developing that drive and developing that grit.
Yeah.
Yeah. People think a grit is a dog that'll run one down. That's a gritty dog. Grit is what will that dog will hang with it. And stick with it and grind it out.
Just stick with the grind. Not going to be deterred by the challenges and the obstacles. Just determined to find whatever the hell it is it thinks it's looking for.
Yep.
Tony Hayes asks, what are some good podcasts to listen on tracking? Oh, there's a lot of them out there, man.
A lot of good ones?
I don't know if there's a lot of good ones. There are a lot of stuff with and that's the thing. I there was a time where that's all I was doing, constantly searching for podcasts to listen to. And there's fun. I mean, there's fun. There's good stuff out there.
I will say we're behind. We're way behind. I got to get them up, and I need another one from you.
I'll send it to you. I just downloaded last week's today. I'm like, oh crap!
But I'm way behind. I'm going to get them caught up. It's been a rat race, but we'll get them out there.
Tony, and I guess it depends on what you're looking for too. There's lots of stuff out there about people talking about tracking. A lot of it's just stories. A lot of it is talking about what the hunter should do when needing a tracker. There's not a ton about focused on trackers themselves that I have found.
A lot of bad ones out there.
Tracker development. And then that's just what I was going to say. You've really got to run some of that stuff through the filter. You've got to be able to recognize, and that's the problem with newer people. And I was this guy, and that's why I can speak to it with a certain amount of confidence that I was consuming a ton of stuff, and now looking back as I gain experience, I'm like, oh, that wasn't the greatest, so. You've got to run it through the filter, and you're going to find, depends on what perspective you're looking for. I will tell you this, even you can pick up stuff for the guy that's on the Working Class Bow Hunters podcast, where they're talking about the deer, where they have to, just talking how other trackers, approach things and the questions they're asking or the recommendations they're giving. Ooh, that's a good one, man. I hadn't thought about. I've learned a lot of stuff that way. But there's also a lot of where I'm going, ooh, man, I don't know about that. You know, but Tony, I don't know if you've seen mine, Tales on Trails Deer Tracking. You can go to Spotify if you want. I haven't done anything in a while because I've been so busy with this stuff. But there's some fun stuff there, some tracking stories there. So I don't know. I'm babbling. I'm sorry.
Well, whenever someone asked about reminding someone something, I just remembered I was supposed to send someone a link to some dog supplies about 2 weeks ago.
Hey, Caddy, speaking of forgetting stuff.
Oh, man. So I am sending it now.
Cool. Yeah,
So Kevin Knighton, if you're tuned in, I'm sending you a link right now.
Cool. All right. Well, look, man, I don't think we need to artificially try to try to stretch this one out. Again, I just love doing this, man, because it's such fun conversation. And guys, I mean it with all sincerity, man. The comments really drive it. You see where we started and you see where we ended. Although there was kind of a framework of a topic, but we cover a lot of stuff, and that's what it's about, And Tony, what can you listen to? I don't know, man. We're glad you're here on Tuesdays, and we hope you're getting something from it, and search around. But this is the community. This is where things, just cool people talking about cool things, and you never know where the road is going to lead, and you don't know that it doesn't go someplace cool if you don't go there, right? So, again, guys, I'm babbling and I'm stretching here for no reason. So, again, genuinely appreciate everybody tuning in. Genuinely appreciate you sharing your thoughts, your feedback. Appreciate you sharing the stream with people. Feel free to put this on your social media pages and spread the word. And you got a topic idea, something you want to hear about, drop us a note. Let's hear it. That's how we got on this topic. Thanks to Chuck. Sent me a message. And it turned out to be a great one. So what do you guys want to hear? What do you guys want to hear as new people? What do you guys want to hear as grizzled veterans? If you're grizzled veterans, hell, maybe you can teach me something. I'm all ears, man. I'm always looking for something. Craig, can't wait till Saturday to meet you guys. Listen every week. Craig, I'm glad you're coming, man. Me too. Finally event close to Northwest Ohio. Cool. Well, good deal, man. It'll be a good time. If you can get there Friday night, Craig, come on up a little early. We're going to be kicking it off. We're going to try to do something. Let me just mention that here too, if I can get another shameless plug from Michigan. And I do want to try to end this in 2 hours so I can take AI snippets of it. And so we got a few minutes here, but we are going to do something Friday. Okay. Friday's going to be testing. Friday morning is going to be, we don't have a lot of tests. There's going to be 6 or 7 tests. So not a lot. We'll get those done Friday. Friday night's going to be a test where a finish level test for my friend Daryl and with crowd participation. And but before that, we're going to have a Garmin segment, and if everything shapes out fine, we're going to have a Garmin talk, talk about Garmin, and then before that, maybe we'll talk about some of the testing, our testing philosophy, and the testing structure and stuff like that. We want to.
Let me tell you, you learn a lot outside of the seminar aspect. Yeah. Just standing around talking, asking questions, hearing stories.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Craig, so I see you wish you'd come up and because you're new to the 300, bring your 300, even if you can't make it Friday, bring your 300. We will get your questions answered. Don't anybody coming, don't leave there with your questions unanswered. That is why we're here, even if it's not a segment in a presentation. We will find time to answer your question and help you with whatever it is you're seeking help with. Chuck Darby, you are now banned from this live stream forever. And I'm going to put a block on you because old boy Chuck says, don't forget to bring the rattlesnake, Kenny and Brandy Mullins, for Matthew Berger. Brandy, I don't know if you can hear this, but you will be held personally responsible for if there's any rattlesnake.
I will neither confirm nor deny whether that is in the cooler in the car.
Yeah, no, I already freaking know the answer to that.
So don't skip over BJ. Said bring you to Florida. So you got to come down and come tracking.
Oh yeah, bring him to Florida. Yeah,
hey,
I got to tell you, man,
he'll get a track for you.
Oh, I'm sure you could, but I don't like spiders and snakes, and that ain't what it takes to love me. Gators and snakes and other weird, creepy things. I don't know, man, but it would be fun. In all honesty, I would like to get down there. Like you said before, you want to try to track another state. I've been invited to track in another nearby neighboring Midwestern state, which is immensely intriguing. So I may take that person up on that offer. How do you know, Julia? How do you know when your dog is ready for testing? I don't know, man. What have you done? What work have you put in? What are the results? Let's talk about that.
I don't want to do it now, but let's standard test lines and run them. You'll know.
Yeah. Regular test line, run them. You'll know. That's right. But we can talk about that when you're here on Saturday, Julia. Don't forget the spiders. Yes, Kevin. Spiders. I don't like spiders either. September is coming, BJ Johnson says. Yes, it is. All right, guys. Well, hey, keep the comments rolling, man. We'll respond to them as the new ones come in. But topic ideas, shoot them our way. Thank you again. Generally appreciate it, guys. With that, we're going to sign off, man. More of the good, less of the bad. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.